Hello, friends and RC family. My name is Alec from High Noon Hobbies, and if you're new to this channel, I very much appreciate you checking the channel out. I don't know how you got here, but I hope that you'll stick around, at least watch this video with me, see if the content might be worth your while, and then subscribe so that I can say, if you aren't new here, welcome back. Welcome back. Oh, had a little indigestion there. Had some Little Caesars before this video. Whew. Sorry about that. Welcome back. You're very special to me. I'm not going to pinch your cheek this time because I'm just feeling a little weird today. A little weird about that one last time. I'm sorry if that crossed some lines for you guys. But I'm going to keep this intro short. This is a really long video. This is part 2 of the White Rocks competition. I'm going to be going over some information pertaining to 10-gate competitions. So if you want to know a little bit more about 10-gate competitions, how to get into 10-gate competitions, what the competitive space kind of looks like if you're interested in it at all, if you have an RC crawler already, or even if you don't and you're just looking to get into it and the competitions that we've been running or ones that you've seen in your area look kind of cool, I'm going to try to give you just a general overview of what's happening in the comp scene, very, very general, so that you can have a little bit of knowledge going into your pursuits of slaying some lines. So let's jump right into the video. I very much appreciate you guys all for being here, and we'll see you back at the face cam thing at the end of the video. So let's get started. All right, here we are back in beautiful White Rocks, Utah. It's just on the southern side of the Dugway Proving Grounds here in the western desert region of Utah. Like I mentioned in the last video, if you haven't been over here, I definitely recommend checking this area out. It's super cool, and the rock is very sandpapery, and the lines are very good. So if you're into RC crawling and you're in the area, I definitely recommend checking out White Rocks, Utah. But we're picking up right where we left off. This is the descent crack to the ascent crack that we watched most of the time in the previous part of this White Rocks competition video series. T set up a pretty good line there going through this down climb, and I'm going to try to replicate it, but right off the bat I'm a little bit too wide and I just get shoved down into the bottom of the crack on my passenger side. I try to fight it as much as I can, but there's just no way that I'm getting myself back up there, and I end up getting a little bit bound up here, and that's the end of that. This lower obstacle here was pretty cool, though. It was a perfect time to try out dig with this Phoenix, but I actually think I kind of confused myself, because right there I thought that I engaged dig, but then I didn't. And then I guess I was maybe just paying too much attention to the front of the truck instead of the back of the truck. So even right here, I still think dig is engaged. And then right here, I go to disengage dig, and I engage it. But I thought I had it engaged already. So now I think I'm stuck in dig, and I end up trying to reverse out of it because I think I'm just maybe bound up in dig, and then I finally figure it out and disengage dig. So I haven't actually had a problem with the Phoenix dig system yet with those full-size servos, but I did trick myself right there into thinking that I had a dig problem, even though I didn't. I'm going to try to make it through more gates in this video than I did in the last one, but we're back in another scale traffic jam. Unfortunately, these being common. Ooh, dear. Almost getting hit there by the 2.2 Wraith with 4-wheel steer, but no problem whatsoever. He was able to correct for that and get back on the right trail there. Got the comp mog coming through, the flat rail body, and another great competition rig here by, this is Ryan's rig, which has actually been changed up a little bit since I think this video was made as well. We got Natalie coming through. The purple truggy. She's actually running, she's got her own comp rig now, which you'll probably see in another video soon, which I actually like quite a bit. It's a lot of people building comp rigs over the past few months have been embracing that buggy body that we saw T running in the North vs. South Northern Premier qualifiers. So I think that's an interesting choice of body. I think it's really cool looking, and I like how people are doing a bunch of different styles of cut jobs and stuff like that. I think Mike actually also is running a buggy body now on his comp rig. So we got a lot of comp rigs coming into the group, and that's pretty fun to see. Here we've got the rift coming through this gate, trying to clear the cones as wide as they are. Still a rift, still going to be a problem. There's cones, there's problems. But he makes it through. So speaking of all these comp rigs that are coming into our group right now, our group, the Slut Crawlers, here in Salt Lake, we are pretty inclusive in terms of, well, the type of crawling that you're into. Doesn't really matter what type of crawling you're into. We do it all. The founder of the group, T, he started with trail crawling as far as I know, and that's how I got into the group. And the group is pretty consistent with doing trail crawls, especially during the summer. We do trail crawls pretty often. I got into the group kind of late in the summer, or maybe just the beginning of fall, and did a lot of trail crawls before I ever even stepped foot on the comp scene. And then when it started getting just a little bit colder, there were a few comps. The first one that I went to being that 801 RCC event out in West Wendover that I did my first comp video on, and that was super fun. But that, like this, is more of a social event than a competition. So a lot of these comp rigs, even though you might see them running through this course, they're really, we're not setting it up for these 801 RCC events. We're setting it up for 10-gate competitions. So that's kind of a great segue into what I wanted to spend the rest of this video talking about, which is getting into the comp scene and kind of just trying to give you a general directory of information if you are personally into RC crawling, but you've never gotten into the competition side of it, and you're interested in doing so. First, let's take a quick pause, though, and just appreciate that line right there. Sneaking it over the top of the cone. Even though he hit the top of the cone, I think I'm going to count that one. Utah County Crawler, Zach, pulling out a pretty crazy line there. I'm going to try to take the full scale side here, which is a little bit easier to get up, but still just having to hammer down on her to get the Phoenix up and over. Really doesn't look like it should go, but for some reason this ledge is very forgiving. It's got at the top of the breakaway, it's got a nice little slant, which is just enough to keep your rubber side down, as Logan would say. But to talk about the RC comp scene, I basically just want to, like I said, give you a very general directory of information. And this is certainly not going to cover all of the information pertaining to the comp scene with RC crawling, as it's a pretty broad subject, and there's a lot of different ways to run competitions. Each area, each group is going to do it differently. What gets done here in Utah probably is not going to be anywhere remotely close to how comps get run in Arizona or Colorado or California or Oregon, or God forbid the East Coast, where I have no clue what they're doing over there. Are they even doing an RC crawling 10-gate comps? I have no clue. I guess so, because they've got the what is the Scale Nationals is over there, right? No, they've got a comp scene over there. All right, I'm ignorant. I'm being ignorant. Don't be ignorant. But so to give you kind of an introductory to competitions, obviously what you're seeing here, even though it might be called a competition, isn't so competitive. I mean, you can make this event as competitive as you want to, but the 801 RCC events really are just that. They make it whatever you want it to be. Generally, when we're talking about comps, we're talking about 10-gate comps. 10-gate competitions, or course competitions, are timed events. So unlike this event where, I mean, again, you could time this event if you want to, but you basically can take as long as you want on this course, and there's 200 gates, so you're kind of expected to take some time going through this course. On a 10-gate, or on a course competition, the time limit is generally set to between 6 and 10 minutes, or I guess maybe even 4 and 10 minutes. We generally run our times between 6 and 8 minutes, and that just helps keep things flowing, as we've got numerous competitors. You know, if there's upwards of 100 competitors, we want to make sure that we get everyone through quickly, but it also keeps things very competitive, because while I personally think that any line is possible with enough time and money, you know, keeping a 6-minute time or a 6-minute time limit on doing 10 different obstacles definitely keeps things challenging, makes so that you have to kind of give and take a little bit to make it through the course in the allotted amount of time. So that now we kind of get a sense for, I mean, obviously I didn't explain it, but a 10 gate competition is 10 gates, right? It might be more, it might be less, but 10 gates is a 10 gate competition. So that those 10 gates, they are generally centered around specific obstacles. You may have a set of gates, so 2 or 3 gates might also be centered around a specific obstacle if you're trying to make it a little bit more difficult. But generally speaking, 10 gates, each gate its own obstacle, and 6 to 8 minutes, 6 to 10 minutes to get through all of those gates. When we're talking about 10-gate competitions, again, we're trying to make it pretty competitive, and one thing that makes it difficult to compete is if you've got a wide range of different trucks that have all sorts of different capabilities. So the way that we handle that in the competition space is by classifying trucks and putting them into certain groups based on their classifications. So that, again, there's a lot of different ways to classify trucks, and each group in each region is going to probably classify trucks slightly differently, but there are some kind of just general rules that we can follow. 1.9 tires and 2.2 tires are generally going to be in different classes. You might have a class for scale rigs versus a class for comp rigs, so something that is more specifically really trying to be scale versus something that's really trying to achieve competition performance. Typically, you're not going to run a flat rail chassis comp rig, like a Class 2 style rig, against an MOA. An MOA, if it is allowed to compete, would oftentimes be in an unlimited or a Class 3 type of class. So to go over the types of classes or the types of classifications that we use for our competitions, we use a Class 1, which essentially represents our scale class. So that's going to be all sorts of scaled out. You need full-size bumpers in the front and rear. You need to have a windshield. You need to have windows, I think, although I'm not 100% certain on that. I don't believe that you can run 2.2 tires in scale class. In fact, you might have to do 1.5s. It might be tiny tire only. And again, this is all, I sound kind of iffy on this because even from event to event, for our own competition events, it changes, depends on who in this area is running the event. So some people will run tiny tires, some people will do 1.9 in scale class, kind of depends there. But generally speaking, Class 1 is our scale class. Class 2 is going to be a more competition crawler centered class. So both of the rigs that we're watching go through this crack right now, the gray rig that we just watched go through, and the cliffhanger body, and then this bug body here, both of these rigs would be Class 2 comp crawlers. Class 2 comp crawlers are, at least in our area, oftentimes going to be flat rails, 1.9 tires. You might see 2.2s, but generally there is a tire size specification that maxes out at 4.75, which wouldn't allow you to run a standard 2.2 tire size, although you could run a 2.2 rim and stretch 1.9 tires onto that, which some do to give a little bit more weight in the wheel department, and also some just like having bigger wheels for other reasons as well. Say hi to the camera. T taking some shots of the mule here, and I'm totally in his way. I'm going to realize that in a second and move out of the way. And the mule here is actually a perfect example of a Class 3 rig, or what would oftentimes be referred to in our group as an unlimited rig. A Class 3 or an unlimited rig is basically a buggy. Although in some of the events that we run, we allow Capras to run in Class 2 if they don't use four-wheel steer or dig. And that is, I personally think, kind of a fair way to do it, because Capras aren't super capable rigs, especially with the way they're weighted and the way the suspension is set up out of the box. And if you're not running dig or four-wheel steer, which give it huge advantages, it seems fairly fair to run a Capra up against a competition rig. And in fact, most of the time, you might remember a couple videos ago when I did a little small showdown of a Capra on an actual competition course. It did not go very well for the Capra. That was what I was going to say. Most of the time, if you've got a competition rig, a Class 2 rig, and a Capra going up against each other, the the Class 2 rig's going to stomp all over the Capra. So seems fair enough, and we've got a lot of people who are interested in running Capras, so it's cool to give them a chance to run it in Class 2 without dig, and then also in Class 3 with dig and four-wheel steer. So those are all of the classifications. We've got Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3, or Unlimited. Again, those are probably going to vary pretty significantly. I know that Sorca, if you look up SORRCA, if you just Google that, the Sorca rules, you'll find that they're pretty well defined, and they kind of are a general guidance for a lot of regional competitions. So if you've got competitions around you and you're not sure what type of rules they might use, check and see if they use Sorca first off, and if they say that they don't, they probably have a rule set that's somewhat similar to Sorca. Most of the time, if it's similar to Sorca, it's just going to be a little bit more lenient, if anything else, because Sorca is pretty stringent. The Class 1 scale rules for Sorca are super, super stringent. There's all sorts of specifications for body measurements. If you do any sort of cutting or tapering of the body in Sorca, you've got to do some very fine measurements to make sure you're staying within spec on that. Whereas in our competitions, we care a lot less about body modifications as long as the group overall that's competing feels generally good about the competition and feels like everything seems pretty fair. Okay, so that's kind of generally speaking what you need to know for competitions. We've got a time limit of between 4 and 10 minutes. We were going to have to hit probably between 6 and 10 different obstacles. There's going to be 10 different gates that we have to go through. Oh, I forgot to mention, gates can be either directional or multi-directional, right? So we can set up a gate to say, hey, you have to go through it one direction, and that might make things even more difficult. Or we might set up a gate and say this gate can go up or down, you get to choose. And sometimes it might be an up or down gate, but you look at it and you go, there's just no way I'm going up that. The only way is to go down. So that's another thing to keep in mind. We've got the classes, Class 1, 2, and 3. So you want to kind of figure out based on those classes, if you already have a rig, what class does your rig fit into? If you don't have a rig, what type of rig or what type of crawling would you like to do? And then because of that answer, what type of class do you fit into? If you're into the scale crawlers, if you're into the scale crawlers, you probably want to do Class 1. If you're into just more performance, but you still like it to look realistic, maybe Class 2. And if you're just all about just shredding lines, that's all you care about, maybe Class 3. In terms of, the penalties and stuff like that for the course, that's also going to vary from group to group. Here we're getting to the end of the course, though, so I'm going to try to wrap this up quickly. Quick little peek at Death Proof. Both of the Death Proof rigs out at White Rocks. It's always special when you get to see both of these rigs by Jeho RC out at the same time. This is a very, very legit builder. If you have not seen the Death Proof rigs, you're missing out. Check out Jeho on Instagram. I'll throw a link to his account down below. But where was I? I want to wrap this up super quickly. I don't want to put any more RC footage because I could just keep going forever and ever. Oh, penalties. Penalties are going to vary pretty significantly depending on where you are, but just generally speaking, know that you'll have penalties for anything besides just going through the course straight. So you're going to get a penalty for reversing. You're going to get a penalty for rolling over. You're going to get a penalty for having to reposition your truck if you get into a spot where you just can't get through it. You're going to get a penalty for winching. You're going to get a penalty, obviously, for hitting gates. And then oftentimes there's going to be a bonus gate, which allows you to have negative points and kind of get back to a lower score. And oftentimes that's how these events are scored. It's like golf. You want the lowest score. So the more of these penalty points you accrue, the worse it is. And if you can hit that bonus gate and get your points back down, that's going to be a good thing. So hopefully this gave you a little bit of an idea of the comp scene, a little peek into the comp scene. I hope that it was useful information to you. If it was, go ahead and give this video a like. If you like to see more content like this, subscribe to High Noon Hobby for more videos every Friday and Sunday. I very much appreciate you guys watching this. Oh geez, where are we at? Like 19-minute long, 18.5-minute long video. I very much appreciate it. If you stayed all the way to the end, you are a true champion. I don't even like to hear myself talk for that long, so I don't know why you're here, but I Really appreciate it. All right. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.